steps out in front of St. Alphonsus. He's missing both his shoes with some broken teeth responses. Bloody stained glass like busted in pieces on the ground. The arresting officer.
Well, it's Ed Fallon, and I'm back in the studio, and I'm trying to relearn how to attach headphones to my ears or earphones to my head. 9 months. Pretty much I've been gone for 9 months. And some people have not missed me. Some people have. No one has yet tried to run me down on the highway, on the streets of Des Moines. That's a good sign, I think. And I'm excited to be here. It really is something to come back from such a out of the ordinary experience. I mean, when you are walking 15 to 20 miles a day, you develop an addiction to walking. I mean, really, I think I need a 12-step, good pun, I guess, 12-step program to help me get over my walking addiction. Okay, so it's not a bad thing, but after the march ended in Washington, D.C., I went to visit my mother in Saugus, Massachusetts. And I'm there in Saugus, and I think I want to go to Boston. I think I want to go down to Cambridge. Check out Harvard Square. I have not been there in a long time. It's about 9 miles away. I walk down the street. I prepare to catch the bus. And I'm waiting for the bus, and I realize I'm 15 minutes early, and I don't feel like waiting 15 minutes. And I say, I said only 8, but it turned out to be only 9 miles. I'll walk. So I walked. Clearly, this is the sign of a person in need of some type of a 12-step program. There's something wrong here with, it's only 9 miles, I'll walk. Okay, we're going beyond the issue of what's good for your health here. We're getting into something that might need some psychotherapy to get me around it. Anyway, I had we're going to talk about the Keystone Pipeline today, folks. We're going to talk about the agreement between China and the U.S. We're going to talk about a bunch of climate-related stuff going on with people who are still trying to keep the momentum of the Great March for Climate Action rolling forward. But I gotta show you some reflections from my time in the airport yesterday. Yeah, I know. The guy who says he's addicted to walking takes an airplane. And sure, all my detractors, and I'll give you the number. Detractors, please call me at 855-244-0077. 855-244-0077 and tell me what a hypocrite I am. Sometimes you've got to make compromises, and so that was one of them. Yesterday, I made a compromise of taking a flight. And I'm walking around the airport. My plane transferred in Atlanta, Georgia. I had not been to the airport in Atlanta. I guess I've discovered that the airport in Atlanta is pretty much the same size and intensity as O'Hare. It's packed with people. And since my plane was late, my first flight was late, thus causing me to miss my flight to Des Moines. So that results in a 6-hour layover, which I accomplished by a glass of very, very cheap wine. The glass of cheap wine that I preferred was half the price of the expensive wines on the menu. I asked the waiter if that meant it would be half the quality, and she didn't have a response for me, and I can respect that. I don't know why you can get a wine menu where you've got $14 glasses of wine and then one for $8. Anyway, I went with the $8 glass of wine and a pretty darn good chicken feta spinach thingamajig with a side dish of mashed potatoes and asparagus. I was surprised to find such a decent meal at a fairly reasonable price at an airport. That got me through about the first 2 hours, and then I'm just, again, my walking addiction kicks in, and I've got to start walking. Fortunately, Atlanta is a huge airport, so plenty of places to walk. And I noticed some interesting things. One is that there are designated rooms for smokers at the Atlanta airport. Well, there are designated rooms and also one designated cafe. And I don't know how they managed. I mean, you could smell the smoke a little bit outside of the cafe, outside of the smoking room. I don't know how they kept most of the smoke in there, because I would look into the window, and the place is packed. In fact, the cafe had so many people inside of it smoking that there was a line of about 4 or 5 people waiting to get in to destroy their lungs. I thought that was impressive. Target your audience, create a business plan, and go after those customers. They did that very well at this cafe at the Atlanta airport. And it was particularly busy because one of the smoking rooms, which was not associated with any particular business that I could tell except R.J. Reynolds, was closed. But I found it, and I thought about this a little bit further. Okay, so help me with this. Yeah, cigarettes are a highly addictive drug and also highly legal. What about the airport in Denver, Colorado, or in Seattle, Washington? What about that? So should we have a special room for smokers of marijuana in the states that have authorized its consumption? So you could go to the smoking room for cigarettes and then maybe move on down the airport a ways to the marijuana room. I don't know. I mean, where do you draw the line? It's a legal drug now in some states. It's probably going to become a legal drug in other states. This gets interesting. I don't know where that's going to go. But it was a new thing for me. I'd not seen that before. I don't know quite how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I guess if you can keep all that smoke inside that room and not let it get out into the general population's lungs, I guess that's okay. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, and I would certainly entertain any opinions that are stronger than mine at 855-244-0077. A couple more airport reflections before we get to the discussion about Keystone. I'm just getting a message in that just now that the Senate defeated the Keystone pipeline authorization bill. I'm getting an affirmative nod from my producer, Maddie Kane, who is tracking this on C-SPAN. That is incredible. That's breaking. We're going to get out of the airport here for a minute, folks. If that's true, that is incredible. And I know that there are folks listening to this show on KHOI or KPVL a day after the live broadcast. It could probably still be news when you're listening to this. Maybe not everyone will know this by tomorrow, but that is incredible. The Senate defeating efforts to authorize construction of the Keystone Pipeline. That is a huge step forward for our movement. And I want to talk more about that in a minute as to why, and also want to talk about the interface between that and what happened recently between presidents of the U.S. and China, and also the what do I want to call it? The EPA rules relevant to carbon emissions. We're talking about air quality, and I just got done talking about air quality at the Atlanta airport, such as it is. There was something also at the Atlanta airport that was a first for me. We're going to switch from air to water here, folks. Okay, I know there's always something new out there, it seems, to try to find ways of saving water, and I appreciate that. That kind of innovation appeals to me because we need that kind of innovation desperately right now when it comes to battling the climate crisis. We need it in solar, we need it in wind, we need it in all sorts of areas, and sure, we need it in water fountains as well. So the water fountain, or at least the one water fountain, that they weren't all like this, but the one water fountain that I studied at the Atlanta airport, it's hand operated. Hand operated. You don't have to actually touch a knob. You don't turn any gizmo or push a bar. You stick your hand in a place where a sensor triggers the flow of water. Now, I have to admit the flow of water was minimal and probably needs to be adjusted. The other feature, though, that I liked, and again, I assume that was an attempt to curb the spread of germs more than an attempt to save water. What I liked was, though, there was also a feature there for filling one's water bottle. And if you're like me and you don't want to wait for the steward or stewardess to come around, 1 hour into the flight with a small glass of water for you in a plastic cup. If you've got a bottle, whether it be, some safe form of plastic, ideally, or better yet, metal, you stick it under this this little gizmo. Again, my mastery of technical language is minimal. You put it on the gizmo, and the gizmo above that gizmo fills your bottle with water without you doing anything. Except that I did find out that there's no sensor to tell you that it's full. And as I'm admiring this and flashing a picture, it fills up and spills over. But ideally, this device could potentially save water, because I'm not going to get a plastic cup on the plane now, and I'm going to be able to hydrate myself more frequently than just 1 hour into the flight. I also noticed at the Atlanta airport that not only do they have sinks in the bathrooms, well, at least in the men's room, I cannot verify what the condition of the women's restroom is like, but in the men's bathroom, the water comes out automatically just as you pass your hand under the faucet. That's nothing new to me. It still mystifies me, because I'm kind of like a jungle creature that comes out at night and discovers that some new tree has been planted in his forest, and he doesn't know what to do about it. I don't. These new things just mystify me. What was new to me at the Atlanta airport was the soap dispenser that operates the same way. You put your hand under this dispenser, and it goes. It spits this ball of soap into your hand. Anyway, I can see how a kid would have way too much fun with that and would cause soap and water to be wasted. But overall, that seemed like a pretty darn good idea. All right, so I have a couple other airport reflections, which I shall save for later in the program, because I want to talk more about this Keystone Pipeline issue. I'm waiting to see the analysis. I don't know who voted, how people voted. Speaking of water, Maddie, one thing I forgot to do in preparation for this program is get myself a glass of water. Thank you very much. It'll be interesting to see how folks voted. It has bothered me the last few days, starting with last Friday, when it became apparent the Senate was going to do this, that this effort to authorize the Keystone Pipeline to basically circumvent the presidential authority on it is being led by Democrats in the U.S. Senate. Now, I understand that, again, I haven't studied the vote total yet, but I'm going to guess that a big chunk of the opposition came from Senate Democrats. I know Senator Harkin, who I called today, and whose staff told me that he has been getting lots of calls today. I also called Senator Grassley. And I have spoken with people around the country, California, Ohio, elsewhere, who have also indicated that a lot of people have been contacting their senators. And I think while I cannot say for sure, I would like to say that probably made a difference. And, again, it'll be interesting to see when Maddie has a chance to analyze this, how this turns out. Okay, so Keystone Pipeline. It's been a target for a long time. And again, my feeling is that this is not something that should be decided legislatively. It's not a legislative issue. It's not an issue that we should have to be lobbying on. It's an issue that should be decided based on the fact that that it is that the Secretary of State should be involved, because this is a pipeline that crosses an international border. Now, that said, the nuts and bolts of this, of course, it's very intrusive to the farmers and ranchers whose land it's going through, and we've seen tremendous opposition in Nebraska. That was something that we experienced when we marched across Nebraska, the extent to which local people in Nebraska opposed this pipeline. I remember walking through the town of Indianola, Nebraska. It was perhaps the hottest day of the march. The mercury hit 100 degrees, I believe, before the clock even struck noon that day. It was a Sunday. Small town. And I'm walking across the entrance to a parking lot of a church, a Catholic church. And it's getting close to Mass time, and it's starting to get some traffic, but not a lot. And a minivan pulls up, a white minivan. and it pulls in front of me. It didn't cut me off. He was going slow, and he was far enough in front of me. He didn't cut me off. He pulled in front of me, rolled down his window, and I'd noticed as he was driving around me that there was a pro-life bumper sticker on the car, as you would expect to see at a lot of Catholic churches. And the driver says, "Are you with those people walking to stop the pipeline?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, thank you very much for doing that. Keep going. Thank you." You know, that experience was repeated over and over again, especially in central Nebraska. Western Nebraska, somewhat less so, but in central Nebraska, where the pipeline is affecting a lot of people, yes, very, very much so. And another time I remember being walking, I can't remember which town I was walking from to, but there were marchers in front of me and behind me, and I'm by myself. A pickup truck pulls over, and the driver rolls down his window and asks what we're doing. I explain that this was the Great March for Climate Action. I explain that one reason we were coming through Nebraska is because of our concern about the Keystone Pipeline, and not only how it affects the climate and the environment, but how it affects farmers and ranchers and others who don't want their land taken through eminent domain for the benefit of a Canadian oil company and refineries in Texas. And he said, "Well, you know what? I'm very politically conservative, but I agree with you on the environment." And that happened over and over again, and not just in Nebraska, but since we're talking about the Keystone Pipeline, that happened in Nebraska, and it happened. The Keystone Pipeline was the issue in Nebraska. And again, if you look just north of Nebraska, where South Dakota is also involved in the discussion about the Keystone Pipeline, we've got a slightly different conversation, slightly, where the Rosebud Sioux tribe was outraged by last Friday's vote in the U.S. House to authorize the Keystone Pipeline. And some of the resistance to the expansion and extraction of fossil fuels, some of the resistance that's coming out is extremely creative. Yeah, I'd like to believe that our march across the country was very creative, and it was. But there are plenty of other things that are equally, if not possibly more creative. And for the leaders of the Rosebud Sioux tribe to describe the vote in Congress to authorize the Keystone Pipeline as an act of war got a lot of people's attention. Yes, we often forget that Native American reservations are sovereign nations. Yes, they are sovereign nations within this nation, but they have certain rights, certain opportunities, there's certain protocol that need to be recognized when you want to do something relevant to that sovereign nation's land, water, air, and that hasn't been done. That was not done by the U.S. Congress. And again, I think their point is well taken. When one sovereign nation says, "We are going to do this to your country," in this case, we're going to run this big, huge pipeline through your country. We're going to come in with our weapons, in this case, backhoes and who knows what else is used, to dig this big trench along this swath of land right through your nation. We're going to do that. I mean, if Canada were to propose doing that, well, again, I'm not sure how different it is when a Canadian company is proposing to do it. But if Mexico or if any other foreign country were to do that, were to come in and take our land, that is an act of aggression. And you could well call that an act of war. Now, you have to think about what's in our collective imagination historically, culturally. And I think most white Americans probably have some empathy for Native communities in some cases, I have an awful lot of empathy, having lived with the Ojibwe for 1.5 years ago. I think most of us have some empathy for Native American nations, and I think some of that is based on corporal guilt, the collective remorse that we hopefully feel because of the way this country was stolen. But I think it's also there because of the appeal of much of what Native traditions have to say to our consumer-oriented, materialistic society today. We are the epitome of the throwaway society. And Native Americans, of course, had an entirely different way of living on the land, a way of existing with nature. And so I think we've got some collective guilt, and so we want to identify with the Native American community. You know, it used to be, of course, that in the old movies from the 30s and 40s, the cowboys and Indians, the Indians were the bad guys. You don't see that anymore. Now you see Dances with Wolves. Yeah, I know Kevin Costner, white guy in there helping save them and all, but the portrayal of Native Americans in films is now extremely positive, as it should be. And in this case, I think, you know, when the Sioux tribe, Rosebud Sioux tribe, says they regard this as an act of war, I think we feel some excitement about that. I know maybe some of us want to see them pick up their weapons and attack the first contractor that tries to build a pipeline, extend the pipeline through their reservation. But I think just the symbolic statement of this is an act of war and we are going to respond. Again, they're not. I don't think they're implying they're going to mount their horses and grab their guns and arrows and fight that way. They mentioned specifically the chief, the president of this nation, specifically mentioned using the courts. They also mentioned blocking, and that would be through civil disobedience, I presume, although they don't say that outright. But I think that has an appeal. And it is very possible that that bold statement by the Rosebud Sioux Nation had a significant impact on the Senate's decision just a short while ago, to defeat the proposed authorization of the Keystone Pipeline. I think that's a very real possibility. Folks, we're going to continue this conversation after we take a short break. You're welcome to call in at 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077 on the Fallon Forum.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit, we don't care. Metro's are everywhere. Metro's are everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro's are everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs,
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team,
I'll take a call anytime.
and then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to the Fallon Forum. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. If you'd like to call in and join the conversation, 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. Okay, so I got a few responses. No calls, but some email, folks. Ron writes, I hate to be Debbie Downer. And yes, I hate you to be Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer is no fun, Maddie. Do not invite her to your Christmas party. But your exhortation, this is regarding challenging people to call in on the Keystone Pipeline vote. Your exhortation assumes we live in a democracy. I think we are getting closer to living in one. I think we were getting closer to living in one, but then the powers that be veered us off in another direction entirely. And that course remains uncorrected even after 40 years. Though I am not certain, I suspect it can no longer be corrected. I hope, Ron, you are wrong. And I think before I could even comment on that in any detail, I'd have to know a little bit more about what you mean by the powers that be veered us off course. Yeah, there is plenty to be said about the election, is there not? But we're going to save that for another conversation. This is on the other side of the issue. Dan writes, all of your daydreaming about an efficient, affordable replacement for fossil fuels will not keep folks warm or provide transportation. And eliminating those traditional means without rational replacements would be economic suicide in a very competitive world. You cannot prove man causes climate fluctuations. And that's in caps. Okay, so Okay, there's an easy response to that. In Iowa, 30% of our electricity comes from wind. In California, in Arizona, the amount, well, in California, both wind and solar. It's just amazing how much proliferation of turbines and farms we've been seeing, and in Arizona as well. I mean, yeah, there are replacements available, and it would be great to see a little bit more commitment on the part of our leaders to making those replacements more available and more competitive. I mean, I think if you start looking at all the subsidies for fossil fuels that our taxes go to pay, and you start looking at the minimal amount of support for innovations in renewables, it becomes not a surprise at all that renewables have a hard time competing. But you know, it's becoming easier and easier to compete, and I think it's just a matter of time before we see wind and solar again at least as affordable as fossil fuels. Okay, so Dan also says he chastises me to use my boundless energy for something useful. Get rid of ethanol. Well, okay, we got corn-based ethanol. I'm sorry, Iowa. And the Corn Belt, generally speaking, but corn-based ethanol, we do need to move beyond that. We need to move toward ethanol sources that are perennial, that do not use as much fuel in the production, that do not use as much soil, because the way crops are currently grown, row crops. We see so much soil erosion. I mean, if you have any doubt about that, go talk to Louisiana. They're getting way more of our soil than they want, and we're losing way more than we even realize. So again, I think there's probably a lot of surprise right now. There's probably a lot of surprise among people who didn't expect to see the vote turn out the way it did. There was even some conversation a while back that Senator Landrieu had probably snagged the 60th vote she needed. That does not appear to be the case. The Senate again defeats authorization of the Keystone Pipeline on a vote of 59 to 41. It needed 60 votes to be approved. What's next? Well, if indeed, I mean, one possibility is that when the new Senate takes control in January, you will see a second attempt to approve the pipeline. I would suspect that it would be the Senate would have an easier time getting it done with the new breakdown with the 7 new Republican seats. I don't know, but I do know this: if Keystone remains defeated, if it doesn't go anywhere, the folks who want to continue to extract oil and pump it down to Texas to the refineries, they're going to find ways of doing it. And one way is Iowa. Another way is the Enbridge pipeline. I mean, when the Great March for Climate Action went through Indiana, we crossed over a new pipeline. It had just been put in earlier this year. I believe it is part of the Enbridge network. And so, they're going to continue to try to find a way. And I read a very, I enjoyed the column in many ways in today's Des Moines Register, a column by Kathy Obratovich, who actually talks about Joshua Tree National Park, where the climate march stopped for a night. Joshua Tree is between Los Angeles and the Mojave Desert. You're getting into, pretty harsh desert country already at that point. Nothing like the Mojave, but and these anybody, you ever seen a Joshua tree? I never even knew about a Joshua tree. It is the most bizarre looking cactus. It's even more tree-like and well, as Obradovich says, Dr. Seuss-like tree than even one of the saguaro cactuses. And, she points out, again, my experience of Joshua Tree National Park was very unfortunate. It was a long day. I arrived late at night. Well, not late. I arrived after sunset. So I'm setting up my tent in the shadow. There was a beautiful moon that night. So yes, there were shadows. The shadow of these Joshua trees. And I could see these shapes around me. Just beautiful. And yet, because we had a long day, the next day I left before dawn. That was my life for the past 9 months. Sometimes getting into a campsite after dark and then leaving before light. That was my experience of Joshua Tree. But Madame Obradovich was there for longer and was able to get some a little bit better experience of it. This was something that I had not heard, but does not surprise me. When you look toward the horizon from Joshua Tree National Park, you notice a very poor air quality. You don't see very well. Writes Kathy, quote, "The smog at Joshua Tree doesn't just blur tourist snapshots. The nitrogen in greenhouse gases absorbs into the soil." The National Park Service says. That's interesting. They actually it gets into the soil. And these twisty, spiky trees, the cacti that look like sea creatures, that's a good description, they now have to compete with non-native grasses and other species that have been able to invade with a nitrogen boost. Isn't that interesting? I mean, these are the kind of domino effects that we don't even think about when we contemplate the climate crisis. And in this case, how is LA's smog related to the struggles of the Joshua Tree? Well, again, LA has a smog problem because of our overconsumption of fossil fuel. I will say this: when I was in LA, I think it was probably one of the benefits of being soaked to the bone like a drowned rat on March 1st as we started the march was it suppressed the often common air pollution. We didn't see the smog wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad at all. It is bad often, and it's bad largely because of our use of fossil fuels, particularly in this case, so many cars. I mean, again, it took us 7 days to walk across Los Angeles. That's a big area, lots of traffic. And so because of that, this haze drops the greenhouse gases in the soil in the Joshua Tree National Park. And again, a lot of that, again, this is said about climate change too. Some have said, well, climate change is going to be good for agriculture. It's going to put more nitrogen out there. Plants are going to love that. Well, apparently, some plants do love that. And they are non-native grasses. They're other invasive species that are finding their way into the Joshua Tree National Park and thus making it difficult for the Joshua Tree itself to find the nitrogen it needs. I mean, who could have seen that coming? This is the beautiful thing about nature and the scary thing about humanity's vanity in thinking that it can somehow act in ways that are contrary to natural systems and somehow get away with it. It's a beautiful thing to see how that works, but scary to think of the outcome. Again, who knows where that goes? When I think about the potential impacts of climate change on the ocean, I mean, I had the pleasure of being on the ocean a little bit after the end of the march. And as you don't have to go to the ocean to learn these things, of course, but as you study what's happening with the concentration of carbon in the ocean, with the acidification of the ocean, with the increased problems the ocean's experiencing because of that, clams and mussels and oysters no longer able to thrive, fish dying. Where does that lead? Where does that lead? If the oceans fail, what does that do to the rest of us? What are the domino impacts going forth? It's hard to imagine. The bottom line is we can't imagine. And because of that, we should be as careful as possible. So, what bothers me about Kathy Obradovich's piece is she gets that. She gets the problem. And yet she fails on the solution. She says, I'm not opposed to the Keystone Pipeline, but it represents an investment in the fuel of the past. Okay, it represents an investment in the fuel of the past. And then here's the line that I hear all the time. And I see we have a caller, and I suspect this might be the caller that I hear this from. She says, whether it is built or not, someone is going to burn that fuel and the carbon will end up in the atmosphere. I think she's Frank. Is Frank on the line? We'll take Frank's call. Frank, did you help Kathy Obradovich write this editorial? I mean, that's like a direct quote from your usual diatribe.
Are you hearing me okay?
Oh, now I hear you okay, yes.
Okay, well, I have the speakerphone on up to my ear, so let me know if you're hearing me funny.
You always sound funny to me,
Yeah,
Frank.
okay, well, that's true. Well, maybe Kathy has just been listening to me on your show too much.
Well, that's a possibility.
Well, Ed, here's an important question. Welcome back, buddy.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back in Des Moines. But
I'll take that. I'll take your word on that.
For the sake of Bobo and Renee and Matt and the boys, I have an important question. On your 3,000-plus mile journey, did you find Bigfoot anywhere? Did you hear any wood knocks?
Well, yes. I became Bigfoot, if you must know. I started out with a size 12 shoe, and it's now size 13. And I figure if I walk across the country again, I'll probably be size 14.
And how soon are you going to be willing to make that walk again?
Next lifetime.
Okay, well, here's the question. Let me get to it, buddy. I don't want to waste your time.
All right.
You guys know you got your clock cleaned in the election, and elections.
No. Hold on. You guys, I'm a very independent-minded person, Frank.
You voted for Obama. Don't tell me you didn't.
Obama wasn't on the ballot.
Okay. But your party, your Democratic Party, the side that you side with more often than the other side, got their clock cleaned. Mm-hmm. And as Obama said in his election, elections have consequences. And when McCain said something, Obama quickly reminded him, hey, we won, you lost, so basically get in the backseat of the car. So with that being said, if Obama wants any kind of cooperation with the Republicans on immigration, which surely I think all sides will come to some sanity on that issue, he's going to have to give up something. And what he's going to have to give up is the Keystone Pipeline.
I don't know if you can logically connect, and I understand how horse trading works in politics, but I don't know if the logic makes sense in this case when you're talking about trading Keystone for immigration reform.
Well, Mary Landrieu is still trying to get elected down in Louisiana. She claims she has got...
Well, and you know what? She did what she had to do politically. I mean, I think policy-wise, you can question whether it was a good idea. But politically, she did what she had to do. No. She was the Democrat leading the charge to get Keystone passed, and she failed. You know that, Frank, right?
Not only that, but she says she has 11 Democratic votes to go along with that. So if there would be some veto-proof majority when the Republicans come bouncing in January, if you could get 11 votes to go along with the Republicans, you would have a veto-proof majority.
You mean in January after the Republicans take control?
Right. So if Mary Landrieu legitimately has 11 Democratic votes, which she said Harry Reid would never put the bill up for vote, which kind of cut...
Well, I mean, he did put it up, and it was defeated just now.
Today?
Yes, about, an hour and a half ago, Maddie?
Okay, but
an hour ago?
Was there any Democratic votes on it?
Oh, I'm sure there were. It was a 59 to 41 vote. It was close.
Okay,
so yeah, there's definitely some Democrats on there.
You surely would suspect that's going to increase in January, would you
not? Not necessarily. You might see, there may have been Democrats. There's a really good chance that Mary Landrieu will be defeated.
Yes, there's a very good chance.
So what message is that going to send to other Democrats? Okay, so we tried to do what she wanted us to do to be more like Republicans, and look, she lost. I think,
is, Ed, what her opponent has basically said, her opponent basically said these words, I'm paraphrasing. It's not that Mary Landrieu is not for the state of New Orleans or Louisiana. It's not that she's not for Louisiana, but she's not getting the job done. and she's going to make her first vote for Harry Reid. And if you don't win the Senate back, Harry Reid's going to keep obstructing these bills like there's 360 of them sitting on his desk now, so how many more is going to pile up? So while Mary Landrieu may be putting her money where her mouth is, that she wants this pipeline, she's simply not getting the job done, so you're going to have to toss her out.
I mean, I don't know how that's going to play with the electorate in Louisiana, but I do think this. I think people, Democrats who might have sided with her to give her the political support she needed to move this forward are going to have second thoughts about it. And you know, Frank, I mean, having served in a legislative chamber for 14 years, I will tell you, sometimes minority party members just vote no to be a stick in the side of the majority party. Well, I saw that happen all the time, Frank.
They also vote no for another reason. They vote no when the vote is safe in their arena and they know it's not going to get changed. And if they're in a hotbed of a political election, they can afford to make a vote that makes it look like they're the one that's being the moderate when they're not going to lose their seat anyway, or they're not going to lose majority.
Here's another scenario, Frank. I forgot where I was going with that train of thought.
Talking about Landrieu and the majority and the votes, yes or no.
Yeah. Oh, here's the other scenario is this, that the Senate does authorize construction of the Keystone Pipeline in January when the new Congress comes back. And when President Obama vetoes it, if he indeed does veto it, some of those Democrats are going to say, look, I voted for this thing, but I'm not going to come out against my president. Again, that's something I saw in the legislature in Iowa all the time. You may have had enough votes to the margin by which you passed a bill might have been veto proof, but then when you come back and actually confront the veto, a lot of those, if some of those members of the same party as that governor or president, they may not go along with it at that time.
Remind me of the name of the woman you was just talking about, who agrees with me.
Oh, Kathy Obradovich.
Okay,
now that's really unfair to Kathy to say she agrees with you, okay? Read the column. There's a lot more in there that you will disagree with than agree with.
I think I've heard you talk about her before. But see, Kathy Obradovich and Ken Salazar over in Colorado are basically thinking the same thing and saying the fuel is going to get burnt anyway.
See,
so we might as well get our cut of the fat hog in the process.
Frank, that is that to me, if I may, is a childish point of view. No offense. Because something is wrong and going to happen anyway, I might as well get my share of it. That's not a mature viewpoint, Frank. I mean, and I say that respectfully because it's not. There's no type of altruism in there at all. There's no type of responsibility. There's no recognition that if enough people said no, then it wouldn't happen.
Yes, Ed, but the vast majority of people in this country want it. You're the one that believes in populism. You're the one that believes that rules change as society grows. If the people
I also believe in representative democracy.
The vast majority of people, poll-wise, thinks it will bring jobs to our country. They may be short-term jobs, but here's the point, Ed. And Ed, once again, I have to make this point with you because
Frank, and you better take 20 seconds to make it because I'm almost out of time.
Quickly, 20 seconds. There's a worldwide supply, worldwide demand of oil. It makes no difference whether this oil gets used in our country or not, because if the people who are using this oil become in competition with the vendors of our oil, there's a problem. We're always short of supply and demand anyway. So if you put any kinks in the system, which this is a kink in the system, you're putting a whole unbalance to the system.
All right, Frank. Well, thank you for calling. Folks, thank you for listening to the Fallon Forum today. There will be a podcast available on the Fallon Forum website, www.fallonforum.com. Folks, if you're listening on KHOI or KPVL, this is a pre-recorded program. To listen to the show live, tune in on Monday through Thursday, 6 to 6:30 p.m. normally at fallonforum.com. Thanks to my producer, Maddie Kane, and thanks to Webcast One Live for providing this studio.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.